The MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with the promo code MLB SGPN to get a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. We're also brought to you by Rebet, a new sportsbook available in 45 states. Download Rebet in your app store. Use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. We're brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're brought to you by the SGPN College Football Playoff Challenge. Free to enter in a $1,000 grand prize. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/CFP to enter today. Welcome, everybody, to the MLB Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. My name is Malcolm Bamford, coming to you from Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. Today is Tuesday, December the 17th, and we are here to have a bit of baseball talk. It's been too long since we talked some baseball. The hot stove has been bubbling away nicely. Lots of things to get to, so we just thought we would catch everybody up. Joining me from somewhere in New York, unless he's been taken away by the Chinese aliens, is Mr. Dylan Rockford. Dylan, have you seen the drones? Are you alive? Can you blink twice if you're an alien?
No, I have not seen them. Good to be with you, boys. Have not seen them. Friends have seen them. Don't know what they are. Not too big of a conspiracy guy, but hopefully we get it all under wraps. But good to be with you, boys. And yeah, 100 days till opening pitch.
Is it 100 days today? I did not know that. I mean, as far as you're concerned, Dylan, New York Mets signed Juan Soto. Nottingham Forest are 5th in the Premier League. Every time I go on the socials, there's a pretty girl on your arm. Your hot stove's bubbling away nicely, Dylan, yes?
I think you could say that. Yeah, but the Jets are killing me. So, with every good, there's a negative, So yeah.
And also joining us is the hardest working man possibly at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, Mr. Scott Reichel. Scott, how are you?
Hey, doing okay. I've been a pretty eventful off season for Dylan and I for different reasons. He got one of my favorite players. I ended up losing one of my favorite players, but the Yankees have been active. Ended up getting a couple of hopefully key contributors, which we'll mention in a second. In fact, there was some breaking news involving the Yankees about 5 minutes ago. So we'll get into that in a second. Point is, though, looking forward to breaking down or recapping the off season. A lot of moves people probably forgot about.
Well, myself and Dylan were just talking about that before we started, and there are so many under-the-radar moves, and it's the off-season. It's the middle of the Premier League season. So when I looked online to make a few notes for this show, you think the amount of names that you sort of didn't remember. Think, Nestor Cortez, Garrett Crochet, Kyle Tucker, people like that, and we'll try and get to as many of them as we can. We're also going to give out some way too early World Series bets as well. It wouldn't be SGPN if we didn't do that. I'm fresh from terrorising Munaf in the fantasy playoffs this weekend. I murdered him. His response to that was to tell me to eat a dick. That was Munaf's advice. So have a little bit of that, Munaf. I was over the moon. He had Devontae Adams as well. I had the fear when Devontae Adams went off early. I was like, oh, shit. Because the rest of his team was dog shit. And I thought Adams is going to single-handedly drag him through. But my boys gave him one hell of a beating. So take that, Munaf. So that's going well. I'm in the middle of the World Darts Championships over here, which is the absolute peak of British culture. The peak of British culture. Tournament started a few days ago, runs through till New Year's Day, I think, or the 2nd of January, the final. Unbelievable tournament. Great sport, great drama, and great for having a bet. DJs only. Have a bet on the darts. If you've got someone that carries Sky Sports, or you can get the darts up. Get involved in the darts.
There's only one guy that I root for. How's Bully Boy doing?
Who?
Isn't Bully Boy? Was it Smith?
The big lad.
Yeah, big guy.
Yeah, well,
the one who had the 9-darter in the competition like a year ago.
Yeah, there's so the opening stages. with it, because it's the World Darts, they have qualifiers all over the world, and people turn up. There's people turn up in this tournament that I could beat. Like there was a bloke on before from the Bahamas. You get a fella turns up from Vietnam and Fiji, and someone from Uruguay. These blokes have got no business being there, but they're all having a lovely time. And then you've got Luke Littler, who's 16 years old, looks older than me. Is just absolutely changing the sport. He's going to be a name.
What about
for
Van
years.
Gerwen? That's my guy.
Van Gerwen, a few years ago, looked like he was going to be dominant, and he's just gone off the boil a little bit. He's probably fourth or fifth favourite for this tournament here.
That's the
but
bald
this
guy,
kid,
right?
Luke Littler,
Yeah,
is on an absolute different planet. But yeah, love the darts. The College Football Playoff Challenge, you need to go and have a look at that. It is SGPN's first annual College Football Playoff Challenge. Pick sides and totals for every game. You've got a chance to win $1,000 grand prize. It's free to enter. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/CFP. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/CFP. Just on college sports, actually, I enjoyed Vermont winning the football last night. They won the soccer with a golden goal over. Who did Did it begin with an M or a W? Scott, you must know.
I'm trying to
Mason.
remember. I know they scored
Marshall.
in extra
Marshall,
time.
I think.
Marshall. I think
There
it
you
might
go.
have been.
See? But yeah, Noah's been tweeting a lot about that and got a bit of traction. So yeah, that was a fun little story as well. I think hot stove wise, there is only one place to start really. The biggest contract in professional sports history. Dylan, Juan Soto has deserted Scott's New York Yankees and gone to Dylan's New York Mets. Dylan, how did that all go down for you? What was the news? How did it pan out for you? What was the feeling amongst you and your friends and generally in New York? How did all that work out?
Well, surprisingly, most of my friends are Yankee fans, so they weren't happy. It was actually late. I think on like a Sunday night, he signed to the Mets. I was actually getting ready to go to bed, and then my happiness was just so much that I couldn't even go to sleep for a while. But yeah, I think it came down to like the suite. If like he was able to get a suite for his family and friends for the Yankees compared to us, but I'm excited.
Is that
I
like
don't know
the kind of decisions that were the margins that things were getting turned on?
I don't know. I mean, apparently they were saying Aaron Judge, he pays for his own family and his own security. So they were saying if Aaron Judge and Derek Jeter is paying for his own box, then Juan Soto, you have to pay for your own box. I don't know if it really came down to that. It's all speculation, but 15 years, 765. I mean, it's insane. I mean, when a Hall of Famer like that goes on the market, you have to go and get him. I like Uncle Stevie. He put his money where his mouth is, and he went and got him. The old New York Mets would never be able to do that, and for the longest time, the Mets were never able to compete with the Yankees money-wise, financially. And our odds really didn't move all that much before the Soto signing. We were 12-1. Now we're plus 900, plus 850, depending on the book. So not the most movement. I still think they need pitching. They did lose Luis Severino, but they did. They signed Frankie Montas. I don't know how much that's going to help. They did sign Clay Holmes from the Yankees, and they want him to be a starter as well. So we'll see how that goes. But love the signing for Juan Soto. I guess the only thing people criticize him for is he's not the best fielder, but he has a cannon. His on-base percentage is fantastic, and I think you pair him up with Francisco Lindor and maybe one more bat, and that's what the Mets need. They need depth when you go up against the Dodgers, who 1 through 7, 1 through 8 is just phenomenal hitters. So that's what the Mets needed. And, if we just win one World Series, I think it's all worth it. But say what you want. I think the Mets are going to be contenders for the next 5-10 years. As long as Juan Soto is still with the Mets, I think we're going to be contenders.
You said Soto, you said Montes. You guys signed anybody that were not Yankees first? Or,
right?
you just like to get the
Holmes?
scraps? Just wondering.
Yeah.
Holmes as well? Yeah, Holmes too. Forgot about.
It's good, though.
I think you're right, Dylan. It's the depth with the New York Mets. If you look at the roster resource on Fangraphs currently, there's obviously the glaring omission out of that lineup that's been there for years is Pete Alonso, because Pete Alonso is still a free agent. Are they going to get Pete back?
I don't know. They said the Yankees are interested. They said the Athletics are very interested in him. I don't know. I would like him back, but it wouldn't kill me if we didn't get him back, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if the Yankees are still in him after getting Cody Bellinger just about 10 minutes ago, like Scott alluded to. So we'll see. I really want us to get Alex Bregman. I think that is the move you need to go and get. But I wouldn't mind Pete Alonso. He's a hometown guy. We drafted him. Wouldn't hurt us, but wouldn't kill me either if he didn't come back.
I just want to point out for a second that Soto signed for $765 million, and Oakland makes the biggest contract in franchise history for Luis Severino for about $67 million. Yeah, it's kind of like the Premier League, isn't it? Kind of feels that way.
Yeah. So. Well, was it Brad Pitt says there's a 100-foot of crap, and then there's the Oakland days.
Yep.
I actually wanted to talk about Oakland in a little while. I want to touch upon them because they've made some lovely moves. I'm getting ever so slightly seduced by Oakland. The Mets, the pitching lineup looks all right. It's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of upside. But come like May the 1st, like Dylan, you could be out there pitching. Kodai Senga, who pitched 5 innings last year. Frankie Montas was all right when he went to Milwaukee. David Peterson came back strong. Then Clay Holmes, will he be a starter? And old show favourite Paul Blackburn is scheduled to be the SP5 in there. So a lot of potential, but also a lot of question marks. Like you say, around about 8-1, the Mets from 12s that they were. Scott, the Mets gain was the Yankees' loss. So how did that go down from sort of your point of view from a Yankees? It leads in quite nicely.
So, first things first, I was pretty, I'd say, upset when it initially happened. Then I heard the contract, and I felt a lot better after I heard the contract, because I don't know what the Yankees were supposed to do. At the end of the day, I know that Adam Rosenberg was making jokes that I was very depressed after Soto signed with the Mets. I really wasn't. I thought I handled it pretty well, actually. The thing is, Soto, I loved as a player, great hitter. You can make comparisons to basically Ted Williams. I mean, guy's an absolute monster at the plate. Having said that, he can't really field. And I know that he was in the Gold Glove running, which was an absolute joke. It's why nobody takes the Gold Glove seriously anymore. Point is, though, you're looking at his overall arm, and Dylan was right. He does have a 90 percentile arm value. He's about -5 on range, which is 14th percentile. He can't field. So the issue that you run into for Soto is you're paying him a lot of money. He's already 26, and he's already showing signs of decline in the outfield. Is he DHing for like 7-8 years of the contract? Is he playing first base? I don't know. He might play first base if they don't bring back Alonso. Maybe a couple of years down the road he's playing first base. That's a lot of money for a guy who's going to give you all his value on hitting. He's not a great base runner. He's not a great fielder. Good arm, as Dylan said before, had some assists in the outfield. It's a lot. And the Yankees had a pretty nice plan B so far. Got Max Fried, got Bellinger. Didn't give up much for Bellinger either. Ended up giving up a pretty young prospect there who made a couple appearances with the Yankees. Thought he was fine. But Bellinger is a nice piece to help out the outfield. Of course, Fried's going to help out the rotation. The Yankees might not be done yet. They've been rumored to potentially target some other guys. But overall, I've been pleased with the Yankees offseason. They got Devin Williams. Thought that was a great addition as well, even though Alonso owns him. Separate story. Point is, though, Williams was great the entire season. Can help out that bullpen, whether he's the closer just filling the Clay Holmes void. I like what the Yankees did. Yes, you could argue that they would be better off with Soto. I don't know about that. I actually really like the moves they made. So I'm pretty happy right now. I'm not used to Cashman making multiple moves in the same offseason. Usually it's one splash, couple of minor moves here or there, and you try to sell the fan base on the Yankees' cachet. They're the Yankees, they'll find a way. No, Cashman was actually pretty aggressive, and I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, Fried, I think, is fairly bulletproof. No one can argue too much with that. I like Devin Williams, although bullpen pieces tend not to blow my skirt up particularly. They do look a little bit light, maybe starting pitching-wise, having lost Nestor Cortez has gone to the Brewers.
That's why they got Fried, though, so that swaps it.
Cole Fried Rodon, and then Lewis Hill. That's a fairly
Pretty good.
solid top four. You've got Marcus Stroman as your fifth, but you've got options as a fifth starter. You can roll Stroman out. I know he's one of your favourites. Jonathan Loaiza came back as well. But it was probably his bats actually. But yeah, Cody Bellinger. I do, I do think. I mean, I backed him last season to hit the most home runs. He never got particularly close, but you do feel like there's more juice from Cody Bellinger to come. Yankees price for the World Series is 8-1. So Mets and the Yankees priced similarly. Scott, if I was to give you a £5 note, would you be putting it on the Mets or the Yankees?
So I'd be putting it on the Yankees, but only because I think the AL's not very good. It's really just comparing the leagues. The problem with the Mets is, in addition to having to beat the Dodgers, which they gave a good run last year, better than the Yankees did, to be honest, but the point is they still came up short. Then you got to win the World Series after that. The Yankees, in theory, in a best-case scenario, can coast through whatever the American League is, because Houston lost Kyle Tucker. I don't really know what they were going to do, because Bregman might leave too. So Houston, you could argue that the window is officially closed at this point. Kansas City's trying to, make themselves known. I'll believe it when I see it. Always tough for, I'd say a mid market, but then again, they also spent some money on Lugo about a year or two ago. So Kansas City's been spending a bit more. I'm not threatened by Kansas City. No offense, that the Yankees handled them pretty easily in the playoffs last year. The Guardians, kind of the same boat. They don't spend money. They're pretty cheap, so we'll see what happens with them too. The AL's really not that good, and I think that the Yankees have a better chance of making the World Series. You can argue if the Mets get there, then they're going to be favorites to win the World Series if they make it to the final, let's just say, against the Yankees. But having a better chance of avoiding the Dodgers does kind of swing it for me. I think Dylan would agree the American League is just not very good. In addition to the National League, besides the Dodgers, you have the Phillies, you have the Braves in the same division. Like, you could be a wild card team in theory if you deal some injuries. The Yankees, I don't want to say should coast to the division title, but I think they probably should. You could argue Baltimore. They made a move for a Japanese pitcher to help the rotation out. The Yankees, I think, are better on paper than Baltimore. With the easier, I'd say, path to a World Series appearance, I'll go with the Yankees.
Yeah, plus 290 the Yankees to win the league. The Mets plus 450. 21-1 if you want to double them up. If you want to take the New York double. We're gonna have a little look around some other of the bigger signings elsewhere in the league. Let me tell you first about Underdog Pick'em. It's got one of the biggest menus for all sports. You can win up to 1,000 times your money with Underdog Streaks. Underdog is always making it easier to win with profit boosts and gimme pick'ems. NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, loads of good stuff on there. Use our code, which is MLB SGPN, to claim a special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code MLB SGPN. And Rebet, a new social sportsbook available in 45 states. Plenty of betting opportunities are available on Rebet. It's easy to use, great for people in states where traditional sportsbooks might be restricted. Download Rebet in the App Store and use the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $100. That's Rebet, promo code SGPN. So, moving away from New York, just sort of casting your eye down the list of names, the ones that jumped out to me. Garrett Crochet had a great season last year, up to a point, and then they kind of down tools with him, just managed his innings towards the back end. Probably should have traded him at the deadline, didn't. Went to Boston. You got Kyle Tucker. We've just mentioned Nestor Cortez. Willie Adames to the Giants. Dylan, which one of these names were you sort of most interested in? Anyone who's moving the needle particularly?
I kind of like what the Dodgers are doing. You get Blake Snell. That's a big contract as well. 5 years, $182 million. But
how do they afford these damn things?
I don't know. They also got Michael Conforto too.
I know, it never ends. Shout out to Conforto though.
But I kind of like what the Giants are doing. They're always trying to spend money. They were in on Aaron Judge a few years ago. They do get William Donis, and that was the largest franchise contract for them, 7 years, 182 million. So he's gonna play the middle of the infield for them as well. But I like what the Red Sox have done. Get Crochet, only giving up 4 prospects, and apparently they didn't give up their 2 best prospects as well. They also get Aroldis Chapman. We'll see what he has left in the tank. Only on a 1-year deal, so nothing to tie them to. But yeah, I would agree with Scott. The reason I like the Yankees to come out of the AL is just because there's no one. No one really scares me. That I think the window's closed for Houston, and outside of Baltimore, who I think can give them a run for their money, no one really scares me. I think there's a chance they can retain Corbin Burns because it looks like the market. First of all, I thought it was going to be the Giants, then it was maybe the Blue Jays, but I wouldn't count out the Orioles maybe trying to re-sign him as well. Anthony Santander, maybe he goes back, but I think the Yankees are interested in him as well to play first base. So we'll see. I do like the Yankees of what they've done. I know they struck out re-signing Juan Soto, but they've been aggressive. They've been really aggressive, and you haven't really seen that in recent years. So I think the Yankees, honestly, have been the big winners. Yes, the Mets made the biggest splash, but the Yankees, I think, have been the biggest winner so far.
You mentioned you thought that the Astros window might have been closed, and for me, a huge signal pointing to that was them letting Kyle Tucker go, or
Yeah.
Kyle Tucker go into the Chicago Cubs. Scott, is that sort of a little white flag maybe from Houston? Because Tucker is exceptional.
I mean, that's how I interpreted it. Then again, when you get swept at home by the Tigers in a 2-game series, basically, then I'm going to be skeptical of your chances of actually keeping the window running. You're looking at what they have right now, and there's a lot of old pieces. I mean, we saw Verlander completely nosedive. His career is arguably over at this point if you're going through his overall numbers last year. You're looking at Jordan, who we know is still very good, does get injured, but still a very solid player. Altuve can't field. Of course, the hitting numbers are still solid, but the core is just not what it used to be. Gave it a hell of a run. Like, I'm not going to roast them for it. They kick my team's ass every year in the playoffs, but I think it's over. So you're trying to think of who's going to be the next team up. Minnesota, after what happened last year, I can't believe Baldelli's still there. Separate story, but you're kind of naming all the teams in the American League in your head, and you got Yankees and Orioles. I feel like that's basically it. No offense to Kansas City, but do any of you want to mention some type of dark horse candidate that can make a run? Because I'm having a hard time thinking of one, because the Yankees, even though I'm a fan of them, and even though they got past the Royals and the Guardians in the playoffs, just watching that team play in the playoffs, I still wasn't very impressed. The Yankees couldn't hit with guys on base, and it didn't matter, because Cleveland and Kansas City both couldn't hit. So does anybody else really scare you in that league? Because I don't have many teams.
I love how we both raised our hand, me and Mal.
Me and Dylan both have got our hands up here, like
I wanted to ask
children.
I wanted to ask you, Scott, because I wanted a dark horse that I think maybe they had a down year last year, but what about the Texas Rangers? Maybe getting Jacob DeGrom back. They re-signed Nathan Eovaldi to a 3-year deal. Do you think they could have a bounce back year?
I mean, anytime
Don't
Bochy's in the
forget
playoffs,
Jake
they
Berger.
find a way.
They got my guy Jake
Your guy.
Berger as well.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing that's always the X factor is the presence of Bochy, who just always
Yeah.
finds a way to win a World Series, and I don't really know how he does it. But yeah, I think that it's kind of a weird year because Adolis just forgot how to hit for an entire season, which was kind of bizarre. Seager gets injured every year, but when he's healthy, he's great. Berger's going to help out. The rotation's still a question mark. You're getting Eovaldi back, those big DeGrom's there in spirit, I guess. I don't know how long he's going to last, but we'll see what happens. But if DeGrom's healthy, it's a big deal. The problem is Dylan's still waiting for him to be healthy. So I don't really know what to make of Texas. I guess if you had to go for a team in the AL West, I know Mal's favorite team out there is the Mariners. I have a hard time picking them to win any year because they just fall apart every year. The same story. They picked up a Rosarena, who might be cooked. I mean, during the midseason last year, that really didn't work out too well. Once again, not many impressive teams. The National League is significantly better than the American League, and it's why the Yankees made the push. Besides the fact that they made the World Series last year, despite not being overly impressive, in my opinion, you're looking at Soto, who was offered a bunch of money, and they kind of tipped their hand saying, listen, if we told the fans we're going to pay $740 or whatever $1 million, we got to kind of go out and get some guys. So I like what they did. But to answer your question, Texas maybe. But once again, I feel like the Yankees and Orioles are head and shoulders above the other teams.
Mhm.
I think the Yankees are ahead of Baltimore personally. Because I mean, I don't think Hyde's a good manager. I don't think Boone's a good manager. But that kind of ties into the move I want to mention, which is Sugano, who was a very solid pitcher over there in Japan, who I don't know much about. But I feel like we just kept waiting for Baltimore to address the actual rotation. And their main move last year was, I mean, they picked up a couple of guys, but one of them was Trevor Rogers, and he was in the minors. So once again, that didn't really work out.
Yeah.
So Baltimore actually addressed the rotation finally at some point. We'll see if that makes a difference, but I thought Sugano was an intriguing move. Anytime you get a guy that dominates overseas and he has to come over, you wonder about Yamamoto, you wonder about the other guys who've come over the years, Darvish, for example. It could work out, it could go poorly, but he did win the Cy Young in the Japanese League twice. So I am kind of wondering how he's going to look.
You think there's a chance that re-sign Corbin Burns if he doesn't find a suitor?
It's possible. It's really weird for the market for Burns because he's such a good pitcher. He also peaked a couple years ago. He was very effective last year. He still can't hold runners.
No.
He's the worst pitcher in the league at holding base runners. And with the amount of stolen bases and the increase you've gotten, that's a pretty serious flaw to his game. Now, maybe one pitching coach can fix it. I don't know if it's John Lester bad. It might be worse than that. But the point is, there is one glaring, I'd say, flaw in his game. Does that impact the market? It might, because you want to control the run game, especially in today's baseball, and he can't do that.
Yeah.
So the team I had my hand up for, you did mention, Scott, was Seattle. And I understand your point. But what gets me with the Seattle is you go down, because they've got half of the job done. They've got the pitching, and it's you can't argue with it. I mean,
It was such a good
of the
rotation
five guys,
wasted last year. It was a shame.
Gilbert, Castillo, Kirby Miller, Wu, they all pitched. Well, Brian Wu pitched 120 innings. Everyone else was over 175 innings. Castillo had the worst ERA at 364. Two of them were under 3. So they've got half of what they need to do under control. So it's not a massive leap for them. What did they win? 85 games last year. Houston will drop off, we think, a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it opens the door, and I just like that angling. They were the case I was going to make as the 30-1 World Series play. If you wanted a bit of a bigger price for Seattle. But yeah, you were onto me there, Scott. We got a couple of outstanding free agents as well, and then I'll see what you boys think if you were to make any World Series picks. MyBookie.ag has been one of our favourite sponsors on SGPN for years. The website is new and improved. There's props for every game. There's the live dealer casino, early cash out options. Head to mybookie.ag with the promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit matchup up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. Mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN. And finally, Rhythm, SGPN's proud partner. Rhythm is the #1 AI-powered sports betting platform that helps provide bettors of all levels the ability to build custom predictive betting models in seconds and get predictions for betting on money line spreads, totals, and props. You can build your own model. You can copy one of the top performing models or have Rhythm do it on your behalf. All the sports, NFL picks, props, college football and basketball, Rhythm have got it all. The thing to do here is claim your 7-day free trial by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. So I've just been looking at the Dodgers roster, and it's absolutely ridiculous. But a missing name there, and one of the biggest free agents left out is Teoscar Hernandez. I mean, you put Teoscar Hernandez back in that lineup, and it's absolutely terrifying. There's been a little bit of talk maybe about the Blue Jays. We've mentioned Corbin Burns. You've got Alex Bregman kicking about. Dylan mentioned in relation to the Mets, possibly Dukes and Profer. Who's left, Dylan, that you want to see or you fancy going somewhere, or who's the best players out there that teams should be going to pick up?
Yeah, like you said, Jack Flaherty is out there. Honestly, I like Tanner Scott, the right-handed pitcher. Could be a closer slash setup guy from the Padres. I think he would fit fantastic with the Mets. Christian Walker as well, play first base. I think that'd be a great fit for the Yankees. Him, Alonso, maybe Anthony Santander. Alex Bregman, I really want the Mets to sign. You move Vientos over to first. And then you have Acuna's brother at second base. I would rule the infield for us. And what do you? I was gonna throw a name out there because those are the top guys that I think that are left. What do you think about a reunion of Trevor Bauer back into the MLB? Do you guys think that is a possibility or no?
No.
No, he's done,
I
right?
don't think it is personally. From what I've gathered, the league he was pitching in was, let's just say, relatively weak. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, he's doing a bunch of YouTube stuff. I know that I would say after I don't know if the trial officially concluded or after the whole, legal issue was resolved, it seemed like he was going to potentially have a shot at getting back in the league, but I feel like it just involves a bunch of media attention that people don't want. And if he was still the pitcher he used to be, the Cy Young winner of the past, I think a team would take a shot with him. I mean, Chapman keeps getting chances, but still, I think you're looking at a spot where I just don't think Bauer's really got it anymore. And I feel like the risk reward, in my opinion, is not there. So I think the answer is probably no. Maybe if a team was going to, it'd be like a minor league deal. I'm not sure Bauer would even accept that. But I think Bauer, the answer is no.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's a bunch of media hype as well. His agent, that girl Reichel, she keeps coming out there and saying he has a ton of interest from the Venezuelan, the Dominican League, the Puerto Rican League
She
as
works
well.
really, really hard to try to get him some jobs, but I don't think Bauer's going to be in the league again.
And then the last one is the other Japanese pitcher. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, but Ruki Sasaki.
Sasaki's so damn good.
He is
so
fantastic,
good.
and
He's so
apparently everyone is in on him. The Dodgers, the Padres, the Mariners. You
the
put
Dodgers,
him in.
The Dodgers are in on a guy? Can't believe it.
Surprising, the Mets. So I think that's the biggest factor or the biggest guy I really want to see move, because once he moves, I think that's going to dictate maybe where Corbin Burns and Jack Flaherty wind up going as well.
Scott, anyone that Dylan didn't mention that you can see making a difference somewhere?
That he did not mention, no. I was going to say Sasaki, but he mentioned him at the last second. I mean, he's been talked about in Japan for years, and I'm trying to remember what exactly he was the one who threw, what was it, like 17 straight perfect innings last year?
Yeah,
or something absurd.
He threw a perfect game followed up by 8 2/3 of a no-hitter. And they actually pulled him. They didn't give him the chance. Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. But the point is, when you're looking at like Yamamoto and Tanaka and all these guys who were viewed as being arguably the best pitcher in the history of the league, and this guy's being praised as being better than those guys, and you might also go to the Dodgers, you have some problems on your hands. But the point is, Sasaki, I think, is really a potential superstar. And yes, he might dictate or what exactly Burns is going to make. I am wondering if Burns is going to be this year's Blake Snell, where he just keeps waiting around and eventually he gets a deal with an opt-out after 1 year and he tries it again the next year. I don't know. Burns in kind of a weird spot. I don't know if it's about the agent. I don't know if it's about the actual base running issues or if it's just about his overall declining strikeout rate. But Burns is kind of in a weird spot because it feels like we thought going into the offseason there'd be a bunch of teams interested. I haven't heard many. I've heard rumors of some teams, like I'd say, asking about him, but there hasn't really been a bidding war. And I feel like that's probably a sign that maybe he'll be the Blake Snell of this offseason, and he's going to sign a deal at the last minute and opt out after the season.
Well, yeah, I think people need to be careful there because that didn't work out particularly well. Jordan Montgomery was the other one last year who did a similar thing, or missed spring training, and then all of a sudden they were both shelved. Finished relatively strong, but you got maybe 60% of a season out of both of them.
Bellinger did that too, and he had a down year. Bellinger did that, but
just further down the food chain, I wanted to mention the LA Angels just because I don't know if they just pick names out of a hat, maybe, or what system they use to get their free agents. And Kyle Hendricks was one that made me laugh a lot because as much as we kind of admire what he attempts to do, it has gone to shit for him the last couple of years. And I didn't think we would see him again, but he's going to be back in the Angels rotation as if we needed any more. But they picked up Kikuchi, which wasn't too bad. And then, I mean, these names like Scott Kingery, Travis Darno, Kevin Newman, Jorge Soler was decent. So the Angels went a bit bad. And I wanted to mention Oakland as well, just because I think they're going to, you can see them building. There's a plan, I think, with Oakland, which there should be a plan. They're a professional sports team, but it's just it's nice to see them kind of building a little bit. But Jeffrey Springs was one name who was a bit of a darling on the show for the last couple of years, and Luis Severino. Where are they playing this year? They're playing in Sacramento. No,
I think like a
where's
AAA
Oakland?
stadium. They're not playing anywhere like because their stadium won't
Yeah,
be ready for a few years.
I want to say Sacramento, but I don't think that's right. Actually, I
I
can't.
think it is. I think it is.
Where they're
I think
playing.
it is Sacramento.
Is it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
that's ringing a,
Sacramento.
yeah, ringing a little bell. But yeah, Severino and Springs. So yeah, we'll see how. Be interesting to see how Auckland work out. Further down the food chain, Scott, anything, any team or players catching your eye?
So I feel we've been talking a lot about the pros. I am wondering where Walker's going to go. Yankees were rumored to get him, but Bellinger could also play first base. So I don't actually know if Bellinger might be the first baseman, but they want to use him as a full-time outfielder. The one team I'm kind of confused about actually involves Bellinger. I don't really understand what the Cubs are doing because I understand you went to get Kyle Tucker, but you didn't immediately extend him. So I'm a little bit confused what the actual plan is. You traded away assets, meaningful assets for Tucker, but then you didn't blindly extend him right after you got him. So, like, I don't really know what the angle is here. You got rid of Bellinger for a young pitcher who maybe can be pretty solid. I don't believe that Petit was viewed that highly in the Yankee staff. I think he was fine as an overall prospect. But I feel like the Cubs, like, half committed to an all-in push without actually doing anything else besides getting Kyle Tucker. And then they got rid of Bellinger, who still has 2 years on his contract, and really didn't get much in return. You could argue it was a salary dump. I didn't think Bellinger was that bad last year. He set the bar very high 2 years ago. He still had 18 home runs, batted about 266, but I think Bellinger's fine, pretty good fielder, and they got Tucker, but they didn't give him a big contract. So I'm a bit confused what the Cubs' direction actually is right now.
Yeah, fair enough. I think the roster does look very middling. There's a couple of names you think, yeah, he's all right. Him and Argus Steele is not a bad one too. But then they picked up Matthew Boyd further down the rotation.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're making some
just
moves here, but Tucker's your main guy and you traded away assets. Aren't you blindly going to sign him to a big contract right after you get him?
They'll win 85
yeah.
games and then he'll be gone.
I guess, or you're leaving yourself an open in case your team stinks and you could trade him at the deadline to flip him. But I just thought it was a weird direction to make all these moves, but to not give Tucker the money after you traded for him. I was going to mention Milwaukee, who ended up losing Adames. They ended up losing away Williams. To be honest, they're just poor. They just don't want to pay anybody. It's been that way for a long time. So I'm not shocked Milwaukee's trying to shed payroll again. It is what it is. I'm sure Trevor's pissed off wherever he is. Point is, though, the Brewers never want to pay anybody. And that's just how it goes. That's how they do business. So,
Scott, you mentioned the Orioles a little earlier in the show about signing the Japanese pitcher last night. They also signed Tyler O'Neill. I thought that was a good deal. There's $49 million. What do you think about that?
Well, most importantly, the owner agreed to move the fences in a bit more. So O'Neill might help out with that. I think he actually made a joke on like the Fox panel where they asked him about moving the fence in, or like, why do you get O'Neill? Or like, why do you move the fence in? It's like, because we got Tyler O'Neill. You can kind of do whatever you want when you own the team. But it's kind of just a weird dimension thing that's been the case for years. I mean, I guess when you score basically one run in a playoff series and you lose again at home, you got to try something to fix out the offense. I wouldn't have changed the dimensions in the first place, but O'Neill, I think, is fine. He gets injured every year, which is a problem. I thought he was good in Boston. I thought the potential Green Monster helped, but at the end of the day, I think O'Neill's a good power hitter. He'll help out with the lineup. If you lose Santander, though, it's a downgrade.
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. It's a cheaper replacement of Santander, who had a great year last year. Baltimore's fine. I still feel like, once again, we've been waiting for them to make the, I'd say, move to put them over the top, and now they finally made a move for a bit of a wild card with a Japanese pitcher who has all the upside in the world. So hopefully that actually brings them closer to getting past the first round for once, or actually winning a playoff series. But O'Neill's fine. But once again, you got to remember, getting him but losing Santander is still a downgrade.
Yeah, I think Baltimore were kind of waiting for they've got all those kids who look identical. There's about 7 of them, and they
Yeah.
were waiting for 4 or 5 of them to take the next step, and it didn't quite happen. Doesn't mean you write them off. There's a lot of young players still to fulfill their potential in Baltimore, but maybe this is the year that they have to do it. In terms of picking a World Series winner, then I have. I've got the league prices up
Just
here.
say
To win outright.
Seattle already and get it over with. Just say Seattle. You do this
Well, no,
every year.
So I'm telling you what I have done, because one of my little systems that I like is to back a team little and often. Whenever I've got an odd amount in my betting account, I put the odd amount on. But Sky Bet over here, one of the firms I use, has got the Dodgers priced up at 5-1 as a little special offer, and that's a big price. There's worse 5-1 shots you'll back. And now I know it's a 11-month wait for me to cash something at 5-1. But I've just been chipping away with the Dodgers. Every time I get a little £10 free bet, a £5 free bet, everything's been going on the Dodgers. So brick by brick, I'm going to have a nice little lump on there, because 5-1 is a huge price. I'm seeing round about plus 350 in other places. So I'm availing myself of that special offer price. It's incredibly tight. You've got the Dodgers who won 98 games. And then what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams all down to 91, where Baltimore, the Mets and the Braves both won 89, who can improve. And then all the central teams last year were better than we thought, or nearly all of them. So it is wide open, as it should be. It is baseball. And as I said before, Seattle interests me just because they've got 50% of what they need in place. So it remains to be seen what they can do with the rest. I put a few bets on the Twins early in the autumn and quickly changed my mind, cashed them all out, and rerouted the money onto the Dodgers. I don't know what I was thinking, but I went off that idea pretty quick. So they would be my 2 players. Like I say, I have started the ball rolling on the Dodgers. Dylan, any prices? Actually, let me go down the list here. I'll give the price up. We got the Dodgers at plus 350, Mets and the Yankees 8-1. The Braves plus 850, Baltimore 12s, Philly 12s, Houston 14, San Diego 15, and then it's 22-1, Boston, Chicago Cubs, and the Guardians 30-1, bar those, all the way out to the Colorado Rockies at 500-1. So where in there, Dylan, is your idea of value?
I got to take either the Yankees or the Dodgers right now. Yankees, I think, have a clear pathway to another spot in the World Series, just because we just went through it for 40 minutes about how weak the American League is. And the only real threat, who were the Dodgers, their window has kind of closed right now, and they're being really aggressive. I like the Devin Williams move as well. So I either got to go Yankees or the Dodgers. I mean, if they get Sasaki, I don't understand how they have this much money, if I'm being honest. So I got to take either the Dodgers or the Yankees right now.
Dylan, are you familiar with Saudi soccer?
A little bit.
It's basically like what the Dodgers are doing right now.
Like live golf?
The argument is we're going to give you an insane amount of money and you can't say no, and nobody's going to do anything about it. And then that's kind of where the Dodgers are at. So, yeah, I don't want to say that they got Ronaldo like Saudi did, but you get my point. They keep just getting they just keep getting stars over and over again. And everyone's like, oh, all right, I guess this is the new norm.
Do they have more money than Uncle Stevie?
The Saudis, yeah. A lot of oil money over in Saudi Arabia. A lot of money.
Then we're screwed. Then the bets are done.
Point is, though, you have a lot of superstars going to basically one team, and that's kind of what's going on with the Saudi league.
Do you think it's an actual thing that they go to the West Coast because it's closer to Asia, or no?
I actually don't know. You could argue that maybe just based on population, there might be more Asian people living there. I don't actually have the numbers in front of me in terms of demographics, but I don't know. You could argue that maybe just the overall scout pipeline is better in the West Coast, I'd say, teams. Seattle's always linked to a bunch of Japanese players. Dodgers are. Feels like mostly the West Coast. I mean, even, of course, Ohtani went to the Angels. It might just be a scout pipeline thing.
Yeah.
Scott, same question. If you were finding some value in this market, where were you looking?
Yeah, so, of course, I feel like, once again, Yankees-Dodgers does feel like the kind of move just based on the Yankees having a pretty easy AL. I'm trying not to be biased, by the way, as a fan. I think everyone knows here that I'm pretty unbiased when it comes to my team. The path is really, really weak, especially with Houston selling off some pieces. And they still give me nightmares every now and then. Every now and then I'll flash back to the Chapman home run again, or I should say the Altuve home run against Chapman. Point is, though, I think for the overall long shots, I am going to give one out. I think I gotta at least consider the Padres. They gave the Dodgers a harder time than anybody. Like, I gotta try and at least make a case for somebody. Maybe if you want to go for the AL, go Baltimore. I just don't trust them to actually do anything in the playoffs. I don't think Hyde is a good manager. So I think San Diego showed some signs last year. Tatis was injured. If he can stay healthy, that helps. Still a Michael King, who's very good. Darvish got injured again last year. He came back at the end. If San Diego can stay healthy, I think they're underrated. Now, I don't know if Profar's going to come back or not. We'll see what happens. But for the sake of pricing, they should be a wild card team, and making the playoffs is half the battle. 15-1's not bad. I'll make a case there. For the American League, you know what? I'll go with Texas at 33-1 because I think the AL West is up for grabs, and Bochy does weird things that seem to always work. So give me Bochy at 33-1. But for I'd say the main plays, Dodgers-Yankees rematch.
Fair enough. Nice to see a couple of our regulars in the chat. Blaine joined us earlier on, and Gio, how we doing? I've missed our regular baseball listeners. Just even this little 45 minutes we've done, that's got me enthused for the new season. I would suggest everyone just keep your eyes peeled between now and obviously March and spring training. We will start ramping up. We'll probably have another little hot stove talk at some point in January, and then we'll get into the divisional previews and all of that. Should Munaf decide to keep us on. Dylan, anything you want to tell the people before we let them go?
No, just hopefully the Mets keep making some moves. 100 days away, and hopefully I see one of these drones out here.
You want to see the drones out there?
I have to see with my own eyes. It's like you got to see it to believe it.
Okay.
Just make sure it's the good aliens, not the bad aliens. That's all you've got to do. Stick with the good aliens, you'll be absolutely fine. Scott, what's happening? Where are we? NBA? Is there any tennis going on? What's happening?
Yeah, tennis actually starts up again tomorrow. So I already did an episode for the upcoming tournament, but tennis is finally back after a month off. I missed it, so it's good to be back. I'm looking forward to doing some tennis episodes again. Besides that, still waiting for some moves in baseball. Are the Braves going to do anything besides lose Max Fried? I don't know. We're going to see what happens, but point is we're still waiting on some big-name pieces to actually find a home.
One of my favourites, Griffin Canning, gone to the Braves. I love Griffin. Yes, Premier League gambling podcast went out earlier on. We've got the EFL Cup quarterfinals this week. Newcastle play Brentford tomorrow, but loads of Premier League. It's a very busy time, Christmas and New Year. We have games every 48 hours. Dylan is flexing. Is Nottingham Forest.
You know, I want to ask you, though, quickly, since we brought up the EPL, how did you become a Nottingham fan? I feel like we've talked about this before, but I just forgot. Do you have a thing for Forest? Like, what made you pick Nottingham?
Honestly, it's a funny story. I have no idea. I just wanted a Premier League, and I was going to jump on the bandwagon with Munaf and be a Liverpool fan, but Malcolm said, don't ever do that. So I said, all right, I can't just be a bandwagon fan. So I just randomly picked Nottingham Forest, and they sucked. But now they're actually pretty good. So it's like, let's go. So
they're better than Scott's team, who look totally and utterly dysfunctional.
Yeah, their relegation odds are actually lower than their title odds. So it's pretty fun what's going on in Man City. But we'll see what happens. I'm waiting for the point deduction. Yeah. So if you're going to have a bad year and the point deduction doesn't take you into the relegation zone, you picked a good year, I guess, to have a down year. We'll see what happens.
Is Haaland still there?
For now. And Pep's still there for now.
There's a little conspiracy theory, Scott, that the players know the outcome of this court case. They know there's going to be a points deduction, and that's why they've down tools, because there's no point. They know they're going to get deducted 85 points or something. So they've just down tools, which kind of makes sense in a little. Yeah, I mean, you can see, I don't believe it, but you can see how that might work. Anyway, it's funny. That's what it is.
It is.
Right. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, everyone who listened. As I say, if you listen to us on Spotify, go and leave a little comment underneath. Write anything you want. It doesn't matter. Just write something, because the bosses see it. And what that does, it shoves our podcast down other people's throats when they open their Spotify, which is great. So we would appreciate that. Otherwise, good luck with whatever you're betting on this week. And we will see you all down the road. Cheers.